You're listening to Underworld on the Ghost Radio Network.
Ghost Radio Australia.
Listen.
Hauntings. The unexplained. Synchronicity. EVP.
So what are you?
I heard that.
Absolutely fascinating.
What are Midnights? Is it real? What do you think?
I love you.
The unseen.
I'm alright.
11:11.
Who or what are mutilating cattle?
Listen.
Poltergeists. Your stories. Your experiences. Listen close.
Tonight we are discussing global conspiracy with a man I've wanted to talk to for a very long time. Author and public speaker David Icke is my guest. Who and what is really controlling the world? Let's find out. A very big welcome to you, David Icke.
Thank you, Leah.
David, you've been called the most controversial speaker in the world. Do you wear this badge proudly?
When I look at the world as it is, and where it seems to be acceptable to pepper bomb the most populated piece of land on the earth, like Gaza, and pepper bomb Baghdad, and manipulate the money system so the purchasing power goes into the hands of the few and the rest have to get by on the crumbs. If anyone didn't think I was controversial, then I would be worried, really. It's like when people say you're crazy, and I think, well, thank you. Because if you considered me sane, and as you consider this system sane, then I would be worried. You know, it's something that is just said, but it's because of what I say, and I say what I say because I believe it to be true, and because I'm challenging a system which is insane. From its perspective, you can be seen as extreme, but actually there's nothing more extreme than the system itself, which claims to be credible and just the cutting edge of human evolution.
I watched last night the documentary Was David Icke Right? And which was a great documentary. You must have been pleased with the way it turned out, were you?
Yeah, I was, actually, and that's an interesting story because, if you keep speaking your truth, and you don't bow to ridicule or dismissal or even people not listening for a while, then I have this phrase: people can't unhear something. And that documentary actually came about because when I was speaking in the early days in the 90s, I mean, crikey, I couldn't fill a phone box, and I spoke in Belfast, Ireland, to literally a handful of people, and went home really, and all those years later. One of the people in that audience in Belfast, a student, had become a television producer, and he had started to see, particularly since 9/11, that what I was talking about in that meeting in Belfast in the 90s about what the agenda was for the world was happening, and that's how that program came about. So, it's amazing if you keep speaking your truth, how you can spark things off, even in situations that seem, in the experiencing of them, to be quite, unsuccessful.
So are you starting to feel, is vindicated the right word, where a lot of what you've written in your book years ago, through your books, is now starting to become almost prophetic? I know you say it's not prophetic as in, you receive this information kind of on an intuitive level. You kind of just deciphered the patterns, didn't you, really?
Yeah, well, the thing is that what they call prophecy is merely predicting the future. I guess you can do this by sitting in a darkened room and accessing some other dimension where the future exists and do it that way, or you can research how the world's controlled outside of how we're told it's controlled, who by, and to what end, and what what that agenda of that controlling network is. And it's quite simple. If the controlling network has an agenda for the world and nothing is done to stop that agenda happening, well, that agenda is going to happen. And so what I was doing in the 90s was uncovering this agenda, and it's got much deeper and deeper since then, but and writing about what the agenda was. And because nothing so far has happened to intervene, i.e. people waking up and saying we're not having it, nothing's happened to intervene to stop that agenda unfolding, so it's unfolded. So people read my books from years ago and then look at the world and they say, crikey, he was predicting what was going to happen. Well, what I was doing was saying what the agenda of this network is, and because that is unfolded, so it's unfolded out of the books and into the world. But it was hard research that brought that about.
Yeah. Can you tell me about one of my favourites of yours, which is the problem, reaction, solution that you talk about?
Yeah, this is a massively important thing for people to understand, because once you grasp it, and it's so simple, you see it playing out literally every day all over the world. It's a simple fact that this conspiracy wants to create a centralized global state. Again, it's simple mathematics, a simple equation. The more points of decision-making there are in the world, the more people are making those decisions in their own communities, in their own countries, etc., the less control any centralized force is going to have. It's like being on a stage, as they used to do when I was a kid, and they used to have acts where someone would keep plates spinning on sticks all over the stage. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you have too many plates and too many sticks, eventually the plates are going to start crashing. You can't keep control of them. So what you're looking for, really, ideally, symbolically, is one big plate and one big stick, because then from one point you can control the whole situation. So the key agenda coordinate is they want a global centralized fascist state with a world government, a world central bank, for which there are massive implications in the economic situation going on now, which we can get into, a world currency which eventually would be just electronic and no cash, no currencies except one electronic currency, a world army to impose the will of the world government on any country or region, as they really want. They don't want to break it up into regions, that would not want to acquiesce to decisions of the world government, and a microchip population connected to the global positioning satellite and global computer system. Now that's where they want to go, among many other things. They want as a global society, total surveillance and tracking of people's movements at all times, again electronically. So to bring that about, they have to somehow introduce those changes. Now, of course, if they were honest and they came out and said, okay, this is what we're going to do, then there'd be a massive reaction to that. People would say, we're not having it. So you don't obviously openly say where you're taking the world. You use two key techniques. One of them I called problem, reaction, solution, and the other one I called the totalitarian tiptoe. Problem, reaction, solution works by creating a problem covertly. In other words, the real cause of the problem is not revealed. It can be a run on a currency, it can be an economic crash, it can be a terrorist attack, it can be a war, it can be the ludicrously invented carbon dioxide causes global warming, all these things. And then you, through an unquestioning mainstream media, tell the people the version of that problem that you want them to believe. And you're looking at this stage two, the problem, the next stage, the reaction. You're looking for a reaction from the public of fear, of outrage, of something must be done, this can't go on, what are they going to do about it? And at that point, they go to stage three, where those who've covertly created the problem and blame someone or something else for it, openly offer the solutions to the problems they've created through legislation and changes in society. And those changes in society are advancing the agenda, the secret agenda, which they don't talk about, in a way that would never happen without the problem. And if the problem is big enough and frightening enough and all the rest of it, then they can introduce changes in society with little opposition because of the problem that would face enormous opposition if they were just introduced without any problem to justify them. And alongside that goes the totalitarian